Ahoy there, me hearties. This be Captain Silver Hook, and you're listening to the Two Old Pirates podcast. Set sail for an open sea of stories, tales, and some really crazy stuff. I expect you to like and subscribe, lest you be walking the plank.
Hey, welcome to podcast 106, but most importantly, it is the beginning of season 6 of the Two Old Pirates.
Throw them up. Guys, a triple-double. Look at that.
Vinny being the co-anchor of this wonderful flagship known as the Two Old Pirates.
Yeah.
But tonight we're coming to you season 6, and we wanted to do something. We know that you guys love our true crime. The true crime have always done the best for us. All the other ones that we do, we're proud and we're pleased with those, but the true crime really tends itself. So we hope that you enjoy this. But we're going to cover probably the biggest true crime thing going on in America right now. It's like hot off the press.
Again.
We're going to be covering the Menendez brothers. Now, you think that
the Menudo brothers.
Here, as a teacher, I can honestly tell you, I've had students this year that are very, very biased on their opinion of what should happen to these two guys. And as a person,
they saw a 22-second
they saw
TikTok.
a TikTok
Yeah.
or they saw one of the documentaries, which can be biased. And you could say, well, what you're about to tell us, that could be biased. That is true.
Yes.
But the thing is, I'm going to give you facts, and then we can go with possible
It's going to be like,
decisions.
Look, it's going to be a really old reference. It's going to be like Dragnet. Just the facts, man.
So, I was alive when this happened. I remember reading about it, and
I was barely alive.
He was.
I was alive, but not conscious enough to know.
He was a baby, and I had just graduated high school. So he's my nephew, if you didn't know that. But here's the deal: the Menendez brothers. These are the facts. We're going to go through them tonight. So I'll start.
This is literally like the court records, like the evidence.
Yes.
Like this is the
this
play-by-play.
is the facts. Okay.
Yes.
The facts are there were
the no spin zone.
There were two sons born to Jose and Kitty Menendez. Jose was a very, very successful businessman. He was the head of like RCA Records and Hertz Rent-A-Car and stuff. So they were multimillionaires, and they had these two sons. And in 1988, the two sons, even though they were privileged, a well-to-do family, they never asked for anything. They decided they had to be kind of bad, so they started going through their neighborhood that they lived in and burglarizing the houses. And they burglarized over $100,000 worth of money, cash and jewelry from local neighbors. Well, Jose tried to make this up, tried to pay the people back, tried to make everything look good because, he was a businessman. He was a very important person. He had a lot of money, and he didn't want to seem embarrassed by his sons.
Yeah, and your kids are going around doing stuff like that. It's going to probably affect you.
So in 1989, the very next year, he moved the family to Beverly Hills and bought a beautiful mansion there and everything that you could ever want. Lyle, the older brother, was in Princeton, which is an Ivy League school. That's very hard to get into, but he had the money and he got in there. And Eric was going into his senior year of high school at Beverly Hills High. So everything seemed to be on the up and up. Things started going bad there, though. After all the robberies and stuff like that, you had Lyle, who was on probation now at Princeton due to the fact of poor grades and also plagiarizing. Plus, he did some other underhanded little bitty things that are not that big of a deal.
And he throw his roommate stuff out the window.
Yeah, and he
out
painted
the door,
his dorm room when he was not supposed to be. And this is Princeton. This is not Del Mar. This is not any. This is freaking Princeton.
Yeah, you don't do shit like that.
That was letting the family down. And then what did Eric do in high school with his friend? What did they do?
You talking about the screenplay they wrote?
Yeah. As an 18-year-old, he did what?
He wrote a screenplay. It was called Friends, I think. And it's a screenplay about either is it a guy and his best friend, or because it's called Friends?
It just says a rich young man.
Yeah, rich young man who conspires to murder his parents to get their inheritance, and then he gets away with it.
So all this occurs, and Eric gets into tennis, and he gets ranked in as a junior and stuff, But this is what everybody sees on the outside.
I think, wasn't he top 50 in the country?
Top 50 junior for tennis. So everything looked like it was going okay for this family. And then in August of 1989, the brothers decide to go out and go gun shopping. And they go to several different gun stores in the Los Angeles area, and they're trying to buy pistols and different things like that. But what happens is there's a 2-week waiting period to buy things like that. They don't want to wait. They want stuff like then. So what do they end up doing that day?
They go to a sporting. I don't know what sporting goods store.
It was a sporting goods store.
It's like a retail chain of sporting goods stores, and they either have a fake ID or one that was stolen?
They have one of their friends' driver's license. They stole it.
Yeah, so they have a stolen ID. Is somehow using an ID that was stolen. They're able to buy 2 Mossberg 12-gauge shotguns and all the birdshot and buckshot that the cartridges that go with.
And that's on the 18th. 2 days later, Jose and Kitty are sitting in their den watching TV, no shoes on, shorts and t-shirts, just sitting back like this watching TV. And bang, the door opens up and the brothers come in with shotguns. The first person to be shot is Jose. The shotgun is put to the base of his neck and fired, blowing his head apart, eviscerating the brain, taking the face off.
Yeah, there's literally nothing left.
Jose was shot 6 times. So he gets shot. They go around the couch. The mother's screaming. They shoot her. I believe she was shot in the chest, in the hip, in the leg, in the arm.
They shot her almost
and they realized, oh man, we ran out of shotgun shells. So they leave her as she's trying to slowly crawl with all these wounds. She's still alive. She's gasping for air. They go back to the car, and Eric hands Lyle more ammunition to reload, and then they go back inside, and they go up to the mom, who's now turned and looking up at the 2 children she gave birth to, wondering probably what the hell is going on. Her husband's been blown away. She's probably going to die from the wound she already has. And then they put the gun barrel up against her cheek, and one final, just devastating the brain, just blowing her away and stuff. Did they leave right away?
No. They hung around for a while.
Yeah,
they thought the sound of the gunshots would alert somebody.
They thought cops would be called, but nobody ever came in. So they cleaned up the area the best they could. They took their clothes. They got rid of the clothes. They drove to Mulholland Drive, which is a very, very famous place in Los Angeles. And they buried the shotguns. And then they were going to go see what movie?
Michael Keaton Batman.
Yes. Yeah. In 1989, they were going to go see Batman. But what happened is when they got there, the ticket would have had a certain timestamp on it that would not fit up with when they were shot and when they would have left the house. So they're like, what do we do? So they went out to this other thing that was happening in Southern California, and I spent a couple hours. Then they come home, and the infamous 911 call, which I will now play for you here, that you can hear the acting of the century.
Oscar worthy.
Knowing that you had just killed your 2 parents, this is what they called and said. This is what they sounded like.
Beverly Hills emergency.
Yes, police.
What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem?
Someone killed my parents.
Pardon me?
Someone killed my parents.
What? Who? Are they still there?
Yes.
The people...
No.
Were they shot?
Hey, man,
were they shot?
Yes.
They were shot?
Yes.
102 response, 722 North Elmore.
What happened? Hey, stay there,
I have a hysterical person on. We're trying to get things further. Other units responding. Is the person still there?
What happened? We have units around. What happened? Who shot who?
I don't hear anything. I just came home.
You came home and found who shot?
My mom and dad. You know if they're still in the house, the people that did the shooting.
Get away from him. Okay, hang on. Let me talk to Eric. Who is the person that was shot?
My mom and my dad.
Your mom and dad?
My mom and my dad.
Okay, hold on a second.
Okay, now that you've heard that bullshit, that's the actual phone call that was made. They were not basically interrogated or talked to by the police at all. I was telling Vinny about this, that if the cops would have looked in their car, they would have found the shotgun shells. If they would have done a paraffin test on the hands of the gunpowder residue, it would have lit up like Christmas night. But they didn't do any of those things. And the brothers thought for sure that they were going to get caught. Basically, what happened was they were let go. And for the next 6-7 months, they just spent and spent and spent.
They got the inheritance he wrote about in the play.
So they got the inheritance. They spent about $700,000. They took trips to London, the Caribbean. They bought clothing. They bought a restaurant and opened up their own restaurant. They bought a Porsche. They bought Rolex watches. And the police were like looking at this doing, two brothers who just lost their parents don't usually go out and spend like this. So they had ideas that maybe the brothers had something, but they didn't have any kind of evidence. They had nothing. So this goes on for a while, for almost a year. And Eric has a psychologist that he goes to and admitted in one of the therapy sessions that him and his brother had killed his parents. But once again, he didn't actually do this. He was dating a woman at the time, and when they broke up,
true, yeah.
she went and said, "Hey."
But I was saying,
normally
what happens is if I were to go to my counselor, whatever, and I were to tell her, the other day I shot a guy in the head. So and she would be obligated to go to law enforcement. So that's what should have happened.
The psychologist was dating the girl. The girl and him break up. She then goes to a friend who's in the police department. She says what she knows. They then get an arrest warrant. They arrest the brothers in 1990, and they wait in jail for a trial. In 1993, they go to trial, and their defense attorney has the brothers state that they were afraid that they would be killed that night because their dad was a sadistic pedophile,
yes, he
and
was,
the mother
absolutely.
Was a mentally unstable alcoholic drug addict.
I believe it.
So they said that they had a huge argument with their dad that night, that they said they talked about the abuse, and he said, we're not going to talk about this. Nobody needs to know about the abuse. You better not say anything. Then he left and went back into the den where they eventually were killed and closed the door behind them. And the brother said that was unusual because he had never closed the door before, so they feared for their lives that night. So they went out, got the shotguns, came in and did the killing like I said. Then, of course, everything else that transpired. Now, they were found guilty, and they were given life in prison without a chance of parole. No parole. Without a chance of parole. No parole. Then you have to skip to 2023, and they are interviewing some different people for different documentaries, and they came across a guy who used to be in a boy band from Puerto Rico called Menudo. And
that was the band that Ricky Martin was in.
Yes. And he said that years and years and years before, when he was 14, that he had stayed at the Menendez house and that Jose Menendez had drugged him and raped him. So this was going to be used in the new documentary. Well, what happened is they also said that they found a letter that Eric had evidently written to his cousin in 1988 detailing the abuse. But this was not found until the 90s or 2000s or 2000. I don't know when it was, but much, much later on. So the gist was all these different documentaries are going to come out. The letter had been found, and that they should be set free because it proved that they were sexually assaulted, they were abused. The father was sadistic and mean and everything. And the problem that I think I have, Vinny, is there is no proof of any of this happening. So these are words of two people that have been in prison for a very long time, and with social media, especially TikTok, I've had students of my own sit there and say, look, they're innocent. They're crying on the stand and stuff. If my butt had done something like that and I'd killed two people, you're sure as hell I'd be the best actor on that thing because I'm not wanting to go to prison. They were found guilty and they're given no chance of parole. And this week, the district attorney of Los Angeles said they have served their time and they should probably be let out. There's no parole. I don't know how they're going to let them out. Go.
What I was going to say is that, okay, let's entertain the thought that, yes, their dad was giving them the bad touch, right? So, and it's like, and then he talks about not the abuse, and then he closes the door to the den, and the two brothers are like, oh, man.
He's going to kill us tonight.
I was going to do the JonTron quote, 2 kids going to die tonight. So, okay, fine. But they already had the shotguns. So how would they know? They wouldn't know in advance that he was going to close the door. So why would they have gotten the shotguns earlier? That already just so happened to already have them, and then they go out and get the guns and bring them in. Right? That doesn't make any sense. Why would you? That doesn't. The process, you wouldn't
plan ahead for your murder if you didn't know your murder was going to happen.
Exactly. You would not have planned ahead to have this stuff ready under the assumption that 2 days later your dad was going to be like, I'm closing the door to the den. That's it. Into the line, kids. You wouldn't know that, so you wouldn't have prepared the ammunition and the guns and all the other stuff ahead of time, just having them out there for a rainy day.
So, we listed all the facts that happened. Now this is the